Welcome back all. I hope you're all having a very good start to the week. I am delighted to say we have our brand new The Slow Lane stickers available over at our website, thelibertatia.com. Made from a very, very thin plastic, so you can stick these anywhere, from motorbikes to cars to fridges to laptops. Very rugged, very durable. So if you're interested, thelibertatia.com. Thank you, as always, everyone, for getting in touch, sharing your thoughts and opinions. The best place to do so, comment section below. And if you have a longer story, maybe with some pictures, you can email hi@tuesday@dobbs.com. I say it every week. But without all of your input, it would be impossible for me to make these weekly podcast episodes because I base near enough that makes no difference 100% of the content on your thoughts and opinions. You are instrumental in me molding these episodes, so thank you so much. We'll start this week with a little bit of road tripping over from England over to Bosnia. This is from Jacob, pictures included, and take a look and soak in these pics. Hello, Freddie. Recently, I completed a trip on the Royal Enfield Interceptor 650, London to Bosnia and back. Vlogged the whole thing, which I have to admit was a steep learning curve in itself, but nonetheless, it's all up on YouTube. Jacob, I've been thinking, where would I like to go on my next international motorcycle trip? I've been thinking possibly Africa, possibly Turkey, but seeing your pictures of Bosnia does give me some ideas. That looks incredible. And Jacob's YouTube channel as well, so you can check out his adventure in video format. Jacob, I'm going to make sure I get on that this week. Thank you so much. On now to Buell Motorcycles, Buell Super Touring pre-orders. This is from Rob over in the US. A company, Rob, that I'm sure I thought they'd gone bankrupt and not come back. Have a listen to Buell's fascinating history. I'll give you a bit of a timeline here. Founded in 1983 by Eric Buell. Eric Buell was a former Harley-Davidson employee. 10 years after Eric set up Buell Motorcycles, Harley-Davidson bought a 49% stake in the company. 5 years after that, in 1998, Harley-Davidson took that 49% share and bought more to turn themselves into the majority shareholders. 10 years later, in 2008, Harley's financial struggles started. And the then CEO of Harley-Davidson, when he was trying to sort out this colossal financial mess that the company was in, he was taking a look at the accounts and he asked the boardroom that he was in, he said, "Someone tell me, why the hell did we take on Buell Motorcycles? Because from a business and a financial point of view, it makes no sense at all." A year after that happened, Harley-Davidson announced that was it for Buell. Game over. Then years passed, and in 2021, Buell Motorcycles is reborn. This, you've got to give them credit here. Buell Motorcycles are all hand-built in the USA. There are two bikes I want to show you here because they've got, to be fair to them, a very impressive looking lineup. This is the first one I'm going to do, Buell Super Cruiser. From what I can see, they're pretty much Harley-Davidson's, I guess you'd say Harley-Davidson's on steroids. They're this model's $26,000. And Buell Motorcycles have opened up pre-ordering. So you have to submit a $50 deposit. And then once things get progressing, Buell will be back in touch with you. But to secure your interest in buying one of these, it's just a $50 deposit. So you don't have to put too much into it, but just take a look at that. 1190cc, liquid cooled, and production begins in the fall of 2025. So you've got about a year to wait before production even starts on that one. And I'll show you one more completely different looking bike. But with this one, I hugely see the similarities to the old Buell Lightnings. This is the 2024 Buell Super Touring. It's such a unique looking bike. I think Buell are genuinely adding something different to the market here. You can recognize a Buell. You can see their very distinct characteristics. They're not following any trends here. I think and I hope they stand a decent chance of succeeding. This is a super touring, not a sports touring, a super touring motorcycle with 185 horsepower. But not only that, there's common sense as well. It's been designed for easy on-off hard bag removal, taking less than 10 minutes. Not sure how easy that is. That's quite strange, I'll be honest. I've only just seen that. But it's a really good looking bike. I think if you're in the market for something edgy and you've got a significantly healthy bank balance, why not take a look at those? I'd be over the moon if they succeed, because it's so good to see Buell back and continuing where they left off. American-built bikes with power and character. On now, a conversation I love. This is leading on from the video last week. Honestly, I forgot about this. I must have mentioned or besmirched the Carbureted name because I got a few people, in fact a lot of people, getting in touch. This is with regards to carbs, first of all. And then I want to bring in a few opinions about fuel injection and just show how polarizing and never-ending the discussion is. I'll start with Long John White. Carbs ain't voodoo, Freddie. You make such a big deal of them. It makes an oldie like me laugh. And then Mark continues, Freddie, stop going on about carbs. You put new motorcyclists off by talking nonsense. 47 years of experience says so. They are a service item, that's all. So service them. No big deal. Richard now. Listen to the difference here. Carbs are a pain if you're not riding them at least every week, especially with the latest petrol, which causes gumming issues. And then Liv U continues, that carburetor thing is not to be glossed over. Having had an old Honda Transit with carburetors, they are a pain in the arse. If you park the bike for 1 to 2 months, it won't start. If it does start, it won't hold the idle and it dies out at stoplights. You then have to rebuild the carbs, tune the carbs, then sync them together. And sadly, of course, there are no shops around here that do it anymore. Electronic fuel injection is superior. You just unbolt an injector and bolt on a new one back in its place and just be done with it. In my experience, this is why I've got a phobia with carbs. I have probably in the past 10 years ridden about 80,000 miles, and near enough every single one of those miles has been on a fuel-injected bike. And I have not had one issue with any fuel injection system in any level at all during any meter of those miles. They've always been faultless. It's always been an element of fuel-injected bikes that, in my opinion, is pretty much faultless. I agree that huge amounts of bikes now, there's just a ridiculously large amount of tech that's definitely going to break. But for me, there's a happy medium, and that's bikes around about the 2010 year, because I want fuel injection because it's just much, much easier to live with. I remember when I got into biking, I started biking at a time when your first bike, let's say you'd pay £800 for it. You'd be looking at the dregs of the biking classified adverts. And of course, if you're looking at the dregs, the cheapest bikes, you back in the day, you'd be looking at carbureted bikes. And I remember I used to work at a night shift and just pushing my horrible Suzuki DR650 carbureted, and it just would not start. I remember cold evenings, forget it. I would have to do training like a bobsleigh ride because I'd have to run alongside it, pushing it down a hill, throw myself on it, try to start it, wouldn't start, push it up the hill again. It was a nightmare. And then, finally, I discovered electronic fuel injection with my Triumph Speed Triple. And it was a revelation. And after that, just the ease of use. It starts in the cold with no issue. I just thought, I can't ever go back. Just have a look at this, for example. I was having a look at 2 different bikes. A Kawasaki ZR7, £700 bike. I thought, this is excellent. This is brilliant value. It's been up for sale for 2 months, but just look at what it says. This is why it's cheap. I've had it close with trying to sync the carbs, but circumstances and a bad injury working have forced me to sell it. So there's one with carb issues. And the very next bike I was having a look at, again, another really cheap bike, £500, Kawasaki ZZR 1996 model. And what do they say? It does run a bit lumpy, so we'll probably need the carbs cleaned. But here's the point. If it probably needs the carbs cleaned, and if the carbs probably need adjusting, if it's such a simple job, these owners would be doing it and then just fixing the bike up. The problem is, unless you've been brought up with balancing, sorting out the carbs yourself, it's not an easy job, and it's just too daunting for most people. And a lot of people now, they just don't have time to be messing around with carbs. They just want to press the on button on a bike and the bike just starts. And carbureted bikes, I know, it's controversial, but they just don't start anywhere near as well. I do know that I can sometimes be delusional, so I try and be as level-headed as possible. And I'm not saying I would never buy a carbureted bike. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to start the warm-up for Bike of the Week by focusing on nothing but carbureted bikes, because I get they're still cool, and I get they're charming, they've got more character, and they're simpler. So let's start the build-up to the Bike of the Week. But I want to set the scene first. The classic bike market in the UK has collapsed. This is eye-opening. From John. Freddie, that Kawasaki KZ1000 pictured here, this is the bike mentioned last week. The KZ1000 that you so kindly advertised for me is an incredible machine. Unfortunately, the bottom fell out of the market a few years back, and it's just getting worse. 5 or 6 years ago, I would have sold this Kawasaki easily for £8,000 to £9,000. I've had this bike on eBay for £6,500 with no offers. It's been on Facebook Marketplace for several weeks, and I've only had one chap call to take a look. But he wanted it for a lot less. It looks like I'll be keeping it for a while yet. The bike came from North America, Colorado, and because of the climate over there, nothing seems to rust. The bike looks like it came straight out of the factory. John, I could not believe this. First of all, if anyone wants one of these Kawasaki's, go and get in touch with John, because it looks like he may be taking it off the market soon. But I remember when these bikes were £9,000 to £10,000 about 5 years ago, because I remember looking at them. The fact that now being advertised at £6,500 and still it's difficult to sell them, that is a gigantic shift in the market. On now to bike prices and how they differ from country to country. This is from Gercho, all the way over in Argentina. Freddie, that same BMW from last week, the 2002 model, pictured here, in Argentina, this would be $15,000. In pounds sterling, that's £11,400. Argentina's used vehicle market is a joke. And on now to 3 Nadis Rex. Freddie, that Kawasaki Z1000 that I've just mentioned again is just beautiful. And it would cost anywhere between 15 to 20,000 Australian dollars. So that's £7,500 to £10,000 sterling equivalent. The modern classics, at least over in Australia, are on the ascent, however, price-wise. This gets me thinking. Any of the bikes I've mentioned today, I'd be really fascinated. Anyone from different parts of the world, if the prices of the bikes I've mentioned today are significantly different in your country, please do share them with me and send over a picture of the advert. I would love to share the differences in prices from country to country. This is where I'm going to start now with the build-up, the real bike-specific build-up to Bike of the Week. These are the bikes that didn't quite make it, but I've had to extend the Bike of the Week this week because there were so many fun ones. I'll start with the BMW R90. This comes from Rover Chap. Freddie, I've just got back from a 325-mile day out around northern England on my 1974 BMW R90S. Total comfort, total reliability, 58 miles per gallon. I won't part with it. The best bike I've ever owned, bar none. Let's take a look at this. BMW R90S. This is a sports motorcycle built from 1973 to 1976. You can tell this model, the S model, because it's got two-tone paintwork and that bikini fairing on the front. It's air-cooled, it's carbureted, it's got 67 tough German horses powering it. But these are quite rare. I have found one for... I've actually gone slightly differently to what I often do. I've gone for a really good condition one. You can get them cheaper, but I've just gone all out here. £7,500 for a 1975 model, listed 3 months ago. Kind of continues from what we've been talking about this classic motorcycle market just collapsing. £7,500, but this isn't your ordinary one. 38,000 miles from new, one owner for the past 30 years. Stainless steel exhaust, recently refurbished, including service of the carbs, the new battery and a brake master cylinder. Great opportunity to own a classic BMW. So this is legit, this is ready to go, and it's stunning. I love that side silhouette with that bikini fairing, and the two-tone paintwork is beautiful. What kind of a deal could you get there, knowing it's been up for 3 months? How willing would the owner be to be flexible with price? But something that special, £7,500, it's a stunning bike. Carrying on with BMWs, this is from Dave. BMW 1150 GS. Freddie, after 13 years riding, nothing but state-of-the-art BMWs, I will never regret buying my low miles 1150 GS. I paid £3,500 for an 18-year-old bike. I then paid another £2,000 for a dealer service, including new tyres and fluids. But here's the key. I've got no monthly payments. I own it in its entirety, and I'd be happy to tour around Europe on it. These are always popular bikes. I'm sure, Dave, I'm sure these will be future classics. I'm in a way a bit surprised that the prices haven't yet gone through the roof for a lot of them. You can pay £3,500 for a really nice one, but I always like to see what bargains you can get out there. Maybe the higher mileage examples, maybe not quite so pristine. There's a 2003 model one that I'll show you, but let me just give you the specs. Built from 1999 to 2005. Oh, I have to read this. So they had a 6-year production run, the 1150. I love this. MCN review of it. So MCN gave it 4 out of 5 stars. The owners gave it 4.4 out of 5. It's got 85 horsepower. It's 229 kilos. And this is MCN's summary of the bike. BMW's R1150 GS is heavy, pricey, and relatively slow. It's also an expensive, imperfectly finished motorcycle, and the engine design is something Noah would recognize. On the flip side, the BMW R1150 GS handles brilliantly, will run forever, and will cheerfully see over 200 miles from a motorcycle's tank. Despite the heavyweight and the really old now technology, they do say that it handles well and is as tough as a bag of nails. What can you find for one of these? 2003, listed 24 days ago. Facebook Marketplace, £2,500, reduced to £1,850. This is, according to the owner, the best colour, only selling due to ill health, runs and rides fantastically. It's got MOT, so the annual check, for a good 9 months. It's fitted with a different pipe. And have a listen to this. As is common with most BMW 1150s of this year, the ABS has been removed at some point. So it's pretty much classic BMW. The mechanicals are strong, but the electronics are seriously suspect. Looks like there's such a chronic ABS issue with this model of GS that owners just can't be bothered anymore. Just get rid of it and be done with it because it's so badly thought out. But there's one other thing that I like the look of here. It's one of the last bits of writing about the bike. Quoting here, I also have a letter from BMW to confirm the emissions of the bike so it can be used in central London and other cities without having to pay the ultra-low emission zone charge. Future-proofed. £1,850. But again, it goes to show, look at how much it's been reduced. People are still scared to buy these older bikes now. People much prefer buying brand new bikes on these finance deals. It must be the peace of mind. Dave, great shout. I love the look of those. Moving on now, Suzuki DR650 SE. This is coming from IT2TL. That is a mouthful. Freddie, all roads lead to the mighty Suzuki DR650 SE. Yeah, okay, this is a smaller version of the one I got to test out. Have a listen to Suzuki's website. They very modestly sum up this bike. The Suzuki DR650S remains the best all-round dual-purpose motorcycle available today. Huge statement there. This is a 644cc bike, single cylinder, air-cooled, 162 kilo wet weight. And I just noticed something. This bike is still available, brand new, over in the USA. This is so strange. I'm on the US website here, and it's available, 2023 model Suzuki DR650S, brand new, $7,000, which is the equivalent of £5,200. How is this still available for sale? That's incredible. Any US owners of these, are these really popular? Because that looks like an unbeatable deal to be able to pick up one of these. If you want one of these in the used market over in the UK, they're not that plentiful anymore. You need to spend about £2,000 to get a 1995 model with 31,000 miles on the clock. So they're not incredibly cheap. The fact that you only need to spend £3,000 to get a brand new one makes it a complete no-brainer. That sounds like phenomenally good value. Supposedly bulletproof engines as well. But I'm going to wrap it up here. Bike of the week. This comes in from David in Scotland. Freddie, I have a 1981 Suzuki GS850G. Remember the G. It's MOT and tax exempt. It's a great bike, and next to nothing it costs me to ride on the roads. Regards, Dave from Scotland. There is, eye-openingly, little about this exact model online. I found this very strange when doing research on this. Incredibly difficult to find information on this bike. It's almost as if this bike, for some reason, has been wiped from the history books. The G suffix, the G part of the title, the Suzuki GS850G, that's really interesting because that stands for the fact that this model is a shaft drive motorcycle. Produced from 1979 to 1982, it's got an 843cc engine, 77 horsepower, 253 kilo wet weight. So it is borderline ridiculously heavy. You had the Suzuki GS1000 at the time. That was the muscle end of the spectrum. And loads of the components, loads of the bike was based on this 850. And then you also had the GS750. So the problem for the 850 bang in the middle is that the 1000cc GS, well, that was more powerful. And then the 750cc GS, well, that was lighter and more nimble. And then the 850 sat in the middle, slightly overweight, and it loses out to both in the top trumps area of power and agility. But what you did have is the shaft drive. It's meant to have stunning levels of comfort, but it's also meant to have poor cold running characteristics. It's got a bulletproof engine. It's got a dodgy charging system from all accounts. It's also got a weak clutch. But Cycle World magazine, 1979, they're quoted as saying it's an excellent touring motorcycle. Here's what you can get. You know, it's funny with these bikes, the likes of this GS850. This is not going to be a bike that's high up on someone's dream level machine, because a lot of people, you want the biggest engine, for example, or you'll want the most definitive bike from that era, whether it be back in the 70s, the Honda CB750, the Kawasaki Z1000 either, that I showed earlier, £6,500. These are the main bikes people remember. So often bikes, a bit like the Suzuki GS, they do go slightly under the radar. So you really have to look for these, and it means that you can get a really good deal on some of these bikes. Take a look at this, listed 9 days ago. 1987 model, £2,100. Just take a look at the bike though. This is why I picked it for Bike of the Week. I think it's a stunningly good looking motorcycle. Really nicely proportioned and a very elegant silhouette. I love the way the handlebars are pulled back and that huge seat for all-day comfort. Massive chrome front mudguard, that strong Suzuki engine. It's a really, really nice classical looking thing. I'm a big fan of this from a looks point of view. The owner says, shaft driven, starts and rides pretty well. Might need carbs tweaking. If it was so easy to live with carbs, why does almost every owner who's selling their old bike state that the carbs may need tweaking? It has a bit of a flat spot at 4,500 revs, not that noticeable on light throttle. Maybe it's the jets. Maybe it is, I don't know. Front calipers need new seals. Okay, it needs a bit of work, I'm not going to lie. Viewing welcome, cash on collection. Yeah, look, you need to be a bit brave because there's stuff you need to do to it, but that is a really, really beautiful looking motorcycle. And now we're at the end of the biking season. Get something. Learn how to do carbs, maybe balance the carbs, clean them out, yada, yada, yada. That's a lovely looking bike. I will wrap it up there. Thank you so much, everyone, for watching this week's episode. Have a fantastic week. See you in the next one.